just amazingly horrible, right? So that's what it looks like. Imagine that water versus that water, and they're only a kilometer away, right? Okay, it's just completely horrible, okay? And we see this basically, well, no, not basically. Everywhere there's a wreck, there's a block reef in that part of it. And it doesn't even have to be a wreck. It could be like NOAA puts out, these things on the bottom, and they drill them in with some of the best stainless steel in the world. So basically, no fucking iron is coming out of that stainless steel, and yet there's little black reefs around them, right? So it's minuscule amounts of iron that we're talking about are important here. And you can go somewhere and you'll see like a line of black reef across the reef, and it's where a cable has been left underwater. And that cable could be 100 years old. There's actually a cable attached to a boat that's upshore, unlanded on Starbuck, and that shipwreck is a wooden ship with a copper hull. So how old is that, right? I mean, that's like 150 years old, I mean, guaranteed. And you can still see this little black reef from this one cable. So it's pretty cool. Yeah, except for killing the reef. And this is one of the world's greatest fuck-ups ever. So this is like one of these things. So this is Millennium, which is probably the coolest atoll I've ever seen. And so it's this beautiful, big island in the Southern Line Islands. And of course, it's all coral and fish and everything all around it, okay? It's got this beautiful working lagoon, wonderful, except for this one completely dead site. And that's the Block Reef, where you can see all the pieces, parts of the shipwreck. And this shipwreck, I just have to tell you, is beautiful. So these guys ran a sailing ship they were trying to get into the lagoon. They ran their sailing ship aground here. So they got rescued, and then they went in and got a towboat to pull off their sailing ship. And then when they were doing that, the tug got its cable caught in its props, and then it washed onto the reef. So there's actually 2 shipwrecks there.
I have a really lame question.
Yeah.
So, you hear about different people around the world taking old ships, cleaning up. And
right, but remember, this is carbonate platforms. In the rest of the world, you have iron, right? So it's a completely different thing, right? So yes, you can sink ships in parts of the ocean and get things to grow on them. Here, it would be a really stupid idea, okay? And in those other areas, it's going to be a really stupid idea to add whatever the limiting nutrient is, right? That's the point here, right? It's not, yeah, you can sink ships and get things to grow on them, but you have to think of the context in which you're working, all right? And then it's not surprising there's elevated iron on block reef sites versus the not, okay? And it's the only element that's really regulated, by the way. We don't actually see much more things. And then if you do the metagenomes, you end up with the same thing where basically you get increased virulence on the block reef sites as well as different things compared to the other sites out there, okay? So it looks like it's a microbial driven thing. And just a little bit of iron actually recreates the block reef, okay? And so again, this is important to think about this experiment, okay? Coral plus iron, it doesn't care. Right? It's totally happy, just like we've seen before. You can add the limiting nutrient, and corals are not hurt by it. Coral plus the rubble from the block reef site, and you start to see corals die, but not a lot of them. Okay? So we basically added an inoculum at this point. Corals plus rubble plus iron. So now we've added the inoculum plus the limiting nutrient, right? And of course, all the corals die. Okay? You do the same thing, and you add ampicillin, and then the corals die. Right? It's the same phenomenon that we see time and time again. And then if you look at these guys, you recreate that fuzzy, whatever black shit is on the bottom of those that we see in the water column, and on the bottom on the block reef site. That's probably sulfur, but we didn't save the right sample, so we don't really know. Okay, but I think it's probably sulfur because you don't get. We didn't add enough iron to get an iron precipitate in this system, so it doesn't. In fact, there were controls to look for exactly that, so it's not And sorry, and you don't see them here, right? There's something about we've got the same amount of iron here and there's no black precipitate. So there's something else going on. There's some microbial activity that's leading to this blackness. I don't know what it is. Yes, sir.
I'll speak to you later about that, but.
Do you have some ideas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll
Okay,
speak to
we'll
later.
put you, yeah, we can finish, okay, and then, all right, so the black reefs are basically this same phenomena, I think. So these things they're crawling along the bottom of the reef, right? It's this microbial mat, microbial algal mat in this case, crawling along the reef, and it's probably recycling iron in it because there's like these are shipwrecks, but there's not really that much iron added to the system. And yet we see elevated stuff even 40 years after the shipwreck was there. So it really says that there's a recycling or something going on. So you can imagine the mat is recycling it, and then it crawls along the bottom, and you have the dam mechanism again, basically. All right, and with this, I'm going to basically stop here because I don't want to do too much of this. But you should look at the later stages where we start pulling in the macroalgae is probably what what I think is going to be called triple dam, okay? Because basically this includes these secondary metabolized allelochemical things from the bigger algae become more important in those systems, right? So now you switch, now it's not just turf algae, but now you actually have like a big fleshy algae that's poisoning the corals.
Do you include cyanobacteria mats in that bigger algae?
Yeah, the cyanos are a good question. They definitely come in at the early stages, and they're there in the later stages. So I don't know how to,
And they're allelochemicaling everything.
They can produce, horrible stuff, yeah.
So you have microbial measurements from this black reef site, and you are not able to predict the community and the mechanisms that they're using to recycle the iron? Or what are they doing in this system?
So that's a good question. So can we figure out anything about the iron metabolism? And a little bit is clear in the metagenomes. The thing that's most clear is that there's all these virulence factors associated with extra iron that we see in the human system. That's about the only thing that we've got. The actual recycling of the things, we actually looked for some of the conventional ones, and we didn't see them. So we don't know. This is bordering on magic nowadays, right? Because nobody quite understands how we would get enough iron out of even like these really steel-like things, right? How did the steel leach the iron that became the thing? So the oceanographers are always like, well, you can't get it enough. You can't get iron out of that, but of course we know you can because things go away, right? So you get rusting eventually. That's probably microbial mediated there also, though we have no evidence of that in the system, but that will be like the Titanic, right, is falling apart because of the rustites, I think is what they call them, which are these microbes that are eating away the thing. Even at 4 degrees in the bottom of the ocean, there's ways to get rid of iron, or to remobilize iron. So that's probably, it's this iron 2 versus iron 3 game that's being played out there. We don't know anything. I actually have given you everything that we've seen so far. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah?
How much is known about microbes that exist on rocks besides the stuff on the Titanic?
Actually, I know nothing about microbes on wrecks, but there could be a ton.
I mean, the data you showed before with the cloudy water versus ampicillin putting it in, you still had it all.
Right, but that's actually just that in those pictures, right? A lot of these things don't really. There's hardly any wreck left, right? It's completely. It's not much about the wreck anymore in the sense that. So, this one is 40 years old, and it's destroyed maybe 1/10 of the island, right? The reef of the island. Okay, it's only been stopped by like a giant. Basically, there's such a strong outflow out of the lagoon. There's a river, like coming out, and then there's like at the north shore. There's so much pounding by the waves. There's just a sandy area. Okay, and that's the only thing that stopped the black reef from crawling up and down that further on that reef. All that's left of that wreck is like a couple bits of metal that you can find. Like essentially, it's all gone.
So it just goes into the system and then persistent, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that gets in there and then it gets, I think it must be getting recycled, because I can't imagine that they're still seeding like kilometers away, little, that there's enough iron leaching out of these little bits to do that.
Unless it triggers some kind of shift, a biological shift, and then that biological shift becomes a legacy of the chemical shift.
Yeah. It's
Right.
It's a whole catalytic, there's this whole field now, electromicrobiology,
Yeah,
that is showing that these guys are just respiring up that iron.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
essentially what it is.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
definitely move electrons in and out of this thing, so it must be something
Yeah.
like that, but the ocean stuff, people haven't worked it out,
Yeah.
basically. So there's non-believers because they don't believe that you
Yeah.
can do it.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, oh well, yes.
Wondering with all that we know that you're telling us, have you seen management decisions?
Yeah, actually, so this is, I would say, so there are two successes that we can nail in the management. One has to do with the Line Islands, which I can tell you about next time. This one is also the Line Islands, but yeah, the last I heard they got, I guess, 6 million to start removing the wrecks off the American protectorates of where we would expect this to happen. And that was driven by the Fish and Game Officer on Palmyra, and I cannot believe I'm blanking on